weather for the Midwest, but the region is still in deep water. Why is this man smiling? Showdown time for the Clinton budget in Congress. And a salute to those who also served, America's women veterans of Vietnam.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Sitting in tonight, Jane Pauley.
Good evening. For the flood-soaked American Midwest, there may finally be a light at the end of the tunnel, the sun, shining across the region today. But the light of day made clear just how extensive the disaster is. Floodwaters remain dangerously high, and many of the levees that have survived are in precarious shape. More now from NBC's Margaret Larson. In a Missouri town appropriately named Defiance, volunteers are doing battle with the Missouri River. It stood at more than 35 feet, rising by more than an inch every hour. John Harahan, who lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, cut short a vacation to travel here and help the town's 50 residents.
Sitting on the beach. You can't get this kind of a feeling sitting on a beach somewhere.
60 miles east in Jefferson City, road crews are struggling to keep highways open as the water rises. And an eerie sight farther upriver where floodwaters have actually floated as many as 300 coffins out of a cemetery near Hardin, Missouri. Authorities say identifying and reburying the remains could take months. Over on the Mississippi, still no relief. Waters more than 6 miles away from the normal riverbank collapsed a silo in Quincy, Illinois. Nearly 300 local television stations reaching 62 million viewers are planning a telethon tonight to raise money for flood victims. It's going to take a lot of money and time to revive the town of Elwood, Kansas. Until the levee broke Sunday, Elwood was just west of the Missouri River. Now it's under it.
I never dreamed it could be this bad. Everything we have is in that house.
Joyce Grimes and her husband Jerry saw the devastation for the first time today. They were on vacation when their house went under. The mayor, Sue Bartley, lost her beauty shop and her home.
Sad.
This is Lincoln Street in Elwood, pretty much a typical neighborhood these days. 650 houses in this community, and fewer than 10 were spared. That's your house, CJ?
What can you say? You know, it's gone. You know, it really is.
But like so many flood victims, Elwood business owner Mike Russell is ready to start over.
So Elwood's not going to disappear off?
No. We've got too good a football team.
It might be slow getting back, but Elwood's not going to die. That's the town spirit now. Yeah. You know, you got us down, hey, but we're going to come back.
For Defiance and other towns still threatened by the waters, it could mean the difference between survival and destruction. Margaret Larson, NBC News, Elwood, Kansas. More tonight on that Washington mystery, the apparent suicide of White House lawyer Vince Foster last week. Bits of information gradually being pieced together are hinting at Foster's troubled state of mind. The latest from NBC's Pete Williams.
The latest findings indicate that Vincent Foster was deeply troubled just before he died. Administration officials today confirmed that Foster had been sent prescription antidepressant pills. They don't know whether he had started taking them. Administration officials also say that in Foster's White House office, a former colleague was packing up Foster's belongings earlier this week and found a handwritten note. It had been torn up and pieces of it fluttered out of a briefcase. The White House describes it only generally.
I think it did show him to be in a distressed state of mind or troubled state of mind per work.
But others say it's a rambling complaint, that people can be mean-spirited, unwilling to see the goodness in others. The White House waited 24 hours before giving it to investigators so the family could be told about it first. And police now say the 911 call, alerting them that Foster's body was at a park near Washington, came from a park maintenance man who was told by a park visitor about the body. The maintenance man did not get the visitor's name. Within a week or so, the Justice Department hopes to have a report on what it has learned about Foster's death. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
Debate continues tonight over the tragic death of pro basketball star Reggie Lewis. Still no official word on the cause of death, though most medical opinion is that it was due to a heart ailment. It was confirmed today that Lewis had been shooting baskets on several occasions in recent weeks, not just Tuesday, when he collapsed and died. When Nightly News continues trying to clear the air on commercial airliners. And on America Close Up,
Welfare reform. New Jersey lays down the law in hopes of getting more people off public assistance. The Clinton administration is in a full-court press on Capitol Hill tonight, pushing a compromise on the president's deficit reduction plan. Next week's congressional vote on the 5-year, $500 billion program is expected to be extremely close. And as NBC's Lisa Myers reports, the president must make the Democrats hold the party line.
The vice president was at the Capitol bright and early today, trying to whip up some enthusiasm.
The momentum in favor of the president's economic plan is building rapidly, and the margin in the House is going to be, I think, significantly larger this time than last time.
That may be wishful thinking, since Democratic leaders don't yet have the votes to pass the plan at all and have not agreed on just what the final package will be. Today was a blur of senior Democrats and administration officials rushing from meeting to meeting trying to nail down a compromise. First, the Black Caucus wasn't happy.
I think it's fair to say we're on the same page, but we're not on the same line.
Then in the Senate, where the president still is at least a couple of votes short, Baucus of Montana and others balked at a 6.5 cent a gallon gas tax.
I'm saying that no gas tax makes a lot more sense, and the closer we can get to that, the better.
House leaders also were gauging support for a package with no gas tax, which some oppose because that tax hits the middle class. However, the White House is fighting to salvage a gas tax of at least 6 cents so that the final package achieves $500 billion in deficit reduction, the amount Clinton promised.
Neither the president nor Democratic leaders are taking any chances this time. They want to be sure they have the votes to pass this before a final deal is struck. And tonight, the votes are not yet there. Lisa Myers, NBC News, the Capitol. President Clinton won election with just 43% of the vote, and he's been dogged by low approval ratings for months. But the latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows some improvement. And as NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports, much of the public agrees with the president about where his problems lie.
While the president's ratings are up slightly, fewer than half the people questioned in the poll approve of the job Bill Clinton is doing. But they are even less happy with Republicans. Nearly 2/3 believe Republicans are opposing Clinton's plan for political reasons. And while nearly half think Clinton is serious about reducing the deficit, only 1/3 think the Republicans are serious. Clinton believes the poll shows that his message is finally getting through.
Once again, Americans are hearing the facts instead of the rhetoric and the bad-mouthing and the negativism of our opponents. And people are saying, let's give the president's plan a chance.
Clinton's improved standing is partly the result of events such as this one today with families, appearing in a talk show format, praising the economic plan's tax credits for the working poor.
But it's very, very important to us that we are not on full assistance.
Still, while a majority now approves of the president's handling of foreign policy, most don't like how he's handling the economy. His explanation for that?
Because they're still worried about their economic circumstances. And because they want results. And because the Congress hasn't passed the plan yet.
Blaming Congress seems to be working for Clinton, and the administration knows it. In a radio interview today, Al Gore unloaded on Bob Dole for opposing the budget.
It is breathtakingly cynical and a disservice to the people of the United States of America.
The president's 3 trips to reassure flood victims have apparently impressed the public. He gets his highest marks for his response to the disaster.
Well, most people think the country is on the wrong track. They're not sorry they elected Clinton. And in a 3-way race against Ross Perot and Bob Dole, he'd win again. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News at the White House.
An important step forward today for President Clinton's Supreme Court nominee, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The Senate Judiciary Committee unanimously endorsed Ginsburg. A favorable vote is also expected in the full Senate next week, which will make Ginsburg the 107th Supreme Court Justice and its 2nd woman. While it's hardly the greatest fear shared by people who fly, the quality of the cabin air passengers and crew share with each other has been a source of concern. And health complaints led to a government investigation begun last month. Today, some reason to breathe easier. NBC's Robert Hager reports.
Some travelers complain about the air inside planes. Tracy Couch, just back from London.
I had a real shortness of breath. My throat was very sore. I was very uncomfortable. I wanted to drink water constantly.
Flight attendants worry about exposure to bacteria or viruses. But doctors told a congressional subcommittee today there's no medical evidence to support these fears.
We really didn't find much of anything that would support a contention that there is a spread of disease above and beyond what you get from people congregating in a small area, and including, you know, this hearing room.
Planes get fresh air by diverting some of what's sucked in for the engines, chilling it, and sending it to the passenger cabin. But the engines have to run harder to make up for the diverted air, and that costs fuel and money. So newer airliners recirculate at least half the air that's already in the cabin before it's exhausted. But manufacturers say air in a plane still turns over 20 to 30 times an hour, and filters like those used in hospitals are made to prevent bacteria or virus from recirculating.
Airliner air is drier than normal with less oxygen, and at higher altitudes, passengers' sense of smell is exaggerated. The government says that might make passengers feel different, but insists there's no known threat to health. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
When we return, Israeli guns pound southern Lebanon around the clock as the flood of refugees grows. Turning overseas now, Israel's fierce shelling of guerrilla targets in southern Lebanon continues. The death toll is mounting and more refugees are streaming out of the area. And today, Israel sent an armored column to reinforce troops in its occupied zone in South Lebanon. NBC's Rick Davis is in Lebanon tonight.
Nabatea, one of the many towns and villages under a storm of Israeli metal for the 5th day. Planes and artillery continue to pound South Lebanon. Nabatea is becoming a ghost town. There are many others. The constant bombardment is an Israeli attempt to drive all civilians out of South Lebanon, leaving only Hezbollah, Israel's enemy, behind. But many can no longer flee. Over 400 people have been wounded. The death count is 89. In a grim reminder of the Israeli invasion in 1982, many children are among the victims. A child was born in the midst of the suffering. A husband says only his mother was there to help. With bombs falling, his wife could not reach a hospital. Refugees are scattered across southern Lebanon. Others have reached Beirut, a stronghold of Hezbollah. Its most violent faction, the Islamic Jihad, issued this threat. In view of the American support for the killers, we warn we will attack a number of American targets in the area. We have chosen to fight for martyrdom until the last bullet. Israel wants the Lebanese government to crack down on Hezbollah, to force an end to cross-border attacks. But the weak Lebanese government probably does not have the will nor the power to stop Hezbollah. And if it tried, Hezbollah could strike back at this government using terrorist tactics, ending or severely crippling the attempts to rebuild this battered nation. And now the refugees from the south are an added burden. Over 300,000 are trying to reach Beirut. Rick Davis, NBC News, Beirut.
Ivan the Terrible, the notorious Nazi guard, torturer of Jews at the Treblinka death camp during World War II. Israel had convicted American auto worker John Demjanjuk of being that man and sentenced him to death. Today, the Israeli Supreme Court overturned that conviction. More from NBC's Martin Fletcher.
John Demjanjuk lost many battles, but finally he won the war.
We acquit the appellant on grounds of doubt.
Israel's Supreme Court vote to overturn the death sentence was unanimous. Now he's a free man after 7 years of solitary confinement. All he wants is to go home to Cleveland, Ohio.
I miss my wife, I miss my family, I miss my grandchildren. I want to go home.
But there's little chance of that. He was stripped of his American citizenship in 1981, and U.S. government officials said tonight he can't come back. The Israeli court ruled there was reasonable doubt that Demjanjuk was the notorious Nazi prison guard Ivan the Terrible. The court said Demjanjuk was a death camp guard elsewhere, but decided not to follow up those charges. Israel was shocked. Nobody more than Eliyahu Rosenberg. His memory of Demjanjuk helped get him the death sentence. Rosenberg was abused by Ivan the Terrible for more than a year in the Treblinka death camp. Now the court has ruled that his 50-year-old memory is faulty. Impossible, Rosenberg insists. For 50 years I dreamed of him. He was in my food. You think I made a mistake? Never, he said. But now the legal war is over. Rosenberg lost, and Demjanjuk won his freedom. Tonight, Demjanjuk is back in jail, this time for his own protection. He'll be deported from Israel as soon as his family finds a new home for him. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Jerusalem.
One possible home for Demjanjuk is his native Ukraine. Officials there said today it was likely he would be allowed in. And Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal said today he agreed with the court's decision to set Demjanjuk free because of doubts about his identity. When we come back, America Close-Up, tough medicine for welfare mothers, a possible prescription for reform. America Close-Up tonight, welfare dependency. More than 14 million Americans are on welfare, according to government statistics out this week. The problem? How to get them off. New Jersey has a possible solution. A new law goes into effect Sunday that combines both carrot and stick. NBC's Mary Alice Williams has more.
When they talk about the permanent underclass, they're talking about places like Camden, New Jersey. More than a third of the population, nearly 32,000 people, are on welfare. For Erica Gilbert, welfare is a virtual inheritance. Her mother, Jerry, her grandmother, all her aunts, and their 22 children live in this neighborhood, on the dole.
The state is paying for me to take care of my kids, and I don't like it. But I want to break the cycle of being on the system, because the system don't give me enough to survive on.
That's the problem. Next month, New Jersey enforces a tough solution. Welfare mothers will lose their benefits if they don't go to school or job training. The state will pay for their education, along with transportation, child care, and health care. But they will no longer get an extra $64 a month for having a baby. A number of organizations, including New Jersey Legal Services and the American Civil Liberties Union, want to sue, claiming the law violates the rights to freedom of expression, privacy, due process, and equal protection, punishing women for bearing children and not men for siring them. And the Catholic Archdiocese is appalled.
If they have another child, we're going to begin to punish them.
But they're not really telling women they can't have babies. They're just saying they won't pay for them.
No, but for a woman in those circumstances, it's tantamount to saying you can't have a baby, or we're going to treat you as if you were somehow negligent or delinquent if you do.
Anyone who has put these programs in place or who has tried to work with these different kinds of approaches are squeamish about programs that take money away from children. We would prefer to change human behavior. We would prefer to have programs that make it very clear that we're supporting people to become independent, and that at the centerpiece is they must go to work and support their family.
Programs like The Work Group, where Jerry went, where welfare mothers have come voluntarily to earn high school equivalency diplomas.
When I get my diploma, I'm going to have it copied and put poster size on my wall for everybody to come in and see it.
I have to do what I'm doing now because I want to get out of welfare. Right. Because I'm going to do it for myself, plus I'm going to show something to my kids that welfare is not the answer.
6 of these mothers graduated. And Jerry got her diploma, took the test 4 times till she finally passed. Now she wants more. She wants a caseworker to get her in training to be a nurse.
I'm a pushy person. I'll push everybody in there to get to where I want to be at.
The upfront cost of helping Jerry and her children and the 5 million American families like hers? Child care and administrative fees alone are estimated at $3,500 a family. That's $45 million in New Jersey alone. NBC News has learned at least part of this program will be an element of national welfare reform. A big price tag to avoid footing the bill for another generation. For America Close Up, Mary Alice Williams, NBC News, Camden, New Jersey.
On Wall Street today, the Dow moved higher again, closing just short of Monday's record high. Trading was heavy. When Nightly News continues, a groundbreaking day for America's women veterans of Vietnam. At the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington today, the role of women in the military was honored. Ground was broken for a statue honoring the thousands of American women who served in Vietnam. NBC's Ed Rabel has more.
As people touched the names on the Vietnam War Memorial today, they could hear groundbreaking nearby.
Let's dig!
Minnesota housewife Diane Evans, who served as a combat nurse in Vietnam, was fulfilling a dream, unearthing the place that will bear the memorial to all the women, all 11,000 of them who also served in Vietnam. The granite wall did not do them justice, she says.
Since the dedication of the wall, the nation was beginning to look at the Vietnam veteran for who he really was, but not who she was. People didn't know we were there.
Many, like Evans, were combat nurses, and the memorial, as this model shows, is a sculpture of an unconscious soldier being nursed by a woman. Another woman scans the skies, another kneels. It resonates with reminders of how it really was, echoing the images from that time.
The nurses saw the bleakest, most terrifying face of war, the mangled men, the endless sobs of wounded kids, not just now and then, but day after day, night after hellish night.
And Evans endured a kind of bureaucratic hell, 7 long years to obtain government permission for the $4 million privately funded project.
One man stood up and said, if we add a statue of a woman, then pretty soon we'll have a tank and a B-52 bomber, and I suppose we'll have to put a Huey helicopter.
But now, 10 years after beginning her struggle, Diane Evans is prevailing. The sculpture by Santa Fe artist Glenna Goodacre will be brought to Washington next month, stopping along the way for public viewing. It will be dedicated on Veterans Day.
To see this statue placed at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, to bring my sister veterans together for the very first time, for the nation to thank them. They've never been thanked by the nation.
Ed Rabel, NBC News, Washington.
And that's Nightly News for this Thursday. I'm Jane Pauley. Join Stone Phillips and me later tonight for a special edition of Dateline. More scams at the gas pump. Till then, for all of us at NBC News, good night.